We're going to talk about a hostage situation this morning, the hostage being the mayor of New York City. New York Governor Kathy Hochul meeting with New York City officials on Tuesday to discuss a path forward for the city leadership, which could potentially include removal of Mayor Eric Adams. Joining us right now, one attendee of that meeting, New York City Comptroller Brad Lander, who's also running for mayor against Adams this year. I called Adams a hostage. He is a hostage. That's what it is. Let's call it what it is.
Been done again and again and again. The Justice Department often defers prosecution in exchange for help with administration policy. Do you like controller or comptroller? I like controller.
I like controller, but my kids say, Dad, you control way too much already.
You do, and you're a control freak. But I like controller. I don't know why it's pronounced controller.
The job is to get things under control.
What's an MP? How does MP turn into an M?
It's the British. It's a British word that they did fake French on.
All right, he wants to get back to his hostage negotiation.
My hostage situation, which is, look, you had that article. Where you want to break out the article from the Journal?
Yeah.
This is a very interesting.
I also want to do the Post.
Okay, this is a very interesting situation.
Both Rupert Murdoch entities, Brad's favorite.
Okay, but this is a very interesting situation because we have a situation where the Justice Department has effectively decided to not prosecute the mayor for political purposes to hopefully get his help with this immigration issue.
Hold that prosecution over his head.
That's why I called it a hostage situation.
Clear on Fox.
That's what it is. So. Now, Joe, you think that that's an okay way to do it?
No, I don't. I think it smells bad, but at the same time, I'm backing Mayor Adams, and I'm going to read you from Andy McCarthy, who also thinks Andrew McCarthy that it's a bad thing, but says. I'm not talking about whether his honor will politically survive the revolt of his fellow Democrats who were content for New York City to be governed by a mayor under corruption charges as long as he was defending lawless sanctuary policies, but are suddenly alarmed with corruption to the point of ejecting him because he's cooperating with Trump.
But let's be clear. What happened on Monday is that 4 deputy mayors that the mayor himself hired to run the city,
all
people that supervise,
right. all TDS,
those jobs
all
anti-Trump. Those jobs are because they know how to run city government.
They all hate Trump.
They run the sanitation department. Right. They run the fire department.
They all hate Trump.
These are people, I don't know if you know the 4 of them. They are not about politics. They are about delivering services to New Yorkers and running the city. There's a snowstorms tomorrow. That's their job. They're responding to crises and
by the way,
emergencies.
for New York City leaders, right, in this moment, how screwed up is the city? I mean, in terms of just to be able to operate the city right now.
I mean, it's unprecedented. You've never had a leadership vacuum like 4 deputy mayors, and these are the ones that really supervise all the critical day-to-day agencies that serve New York.
Do you think that Hochul should kick him out of the role?
Well, I sent a letter to the mayor saying we need to see the contingency plan. What are you going to do to run city government? Are you able to deliver? We need to see what the judge does today. I hope Judge Ho won't take this corrupt hostage bargain.
Yeah, so what do you think happens? Do you think the judge might say we're not doing this?
Anyone else who might be ready to step in as mayor at this point? Is there anyone
at this table, maybe?
Yeah, someone nearby that could be.
This is a great city.
It's not me and not Andrew, so I can only think of one.
I'm running for mayor because we need a more affordable and a safer and a better-run New York City, and we need honest, effective leadership at City Hall. And this is not about ideology.
Would you enforce immigration policies of the Trump administration?
When someone is convicted of a serious or violent offense, our laws allow for cooperation and for them to be deported. But if we're talking about families, kids in school, folks who are, families, grandparents in the shelter system.
Would this, you okay with the sanctuary city designation for New York City?
That lets it be possible when someone wants to report domestic violence or be a witness.
So this could be a sanctuary city.
If you have not committed a serious or violent offense, then we want you to send your kid to school. If you see a crime, we want you to come to the precinct and report it.
That might mean that you would have to push back on anything that Homan said or anything Trump said.
Last week Elon Musk reached in and stole $80 million from New York City. So
Stole's a strong
sometimes word. It's not. We have a contract. They owe us the money. They paid us the money. They took it back.
Do you think that $80 million is okay to support migrants that are here illegally versus people in North Carolina and Tennessee and Kentucky.
It did not come from that emergency money, and
money's fungible. Money's fungible.
Congress
but you see that that's what it looks like, though. We're taking care of people that are here illegally, and our own, we're not taking care of it. It doesn't matter whether it's the same money or not.
Of course it matters. Congress authorizes money for emergencies, and they did. Right. This was money that was authorized.
Let me ask you a different question, though. Do you think that there's a signal that needs to be sent in this state that illegal immigrants are not welcome? Or are you suggesting this is a place where illegal immigrants should come?
That's a good way to put it.
The federal government, this state doesn't control the border. Federal government controls the border.
I understand that, but I think
these are people.
You're deflecting.
I'm not deflecting. These are people who the federal government sent here. They came in, they registered at the border. That's a separate question than New York controls. They were then sent here largely by the federal government while awaiting their appointments.
The last administration.
And, I mean, it's the federal government. They were sent here by the federal government. New York says, look, if you're here, send your kids to school. Right. We will try to make sure you're not homeless.
Let me ask you a separate question, which is, there has been a lot, especially in this city, I think you could say that safety and security is a genuine question.
A genuine question.
A genuine question.
I'm running for mayor because it's got to be a safer and better run city.
Okay. And when you hear the stories of some of the folks who have committed violent crimes in this city, on the subway, on the streets, what have you, one of the things you continue, we all read the papers and you find out that these people were violent offenders beforehand. And that there are rules and laws in this state that have shifted over the past several years that have made it a lot easier for these people to be back on the streets.
But look, one of the guys...
And my question is, how are you going to change that? Because for reasons that are inexplicable to me, this state has moved in a way to allow a lot of this to take place.
Look, one of the guys who committed a violent offense was someone that the NYPD had arrested, was in prison. ICE then deported him back, and that's why he was out of jail. And then he came back here again. So that speaks to ineffective border controls for certain. But our policies, like,
but do you think the policies in this state currently, not just the city, but the state, make sense?
Well, there's a lot of ways we got to make this city safer. I got a set of plans to end street homelessness for people with serious mental illness, so we don't have a mental health crisis.
I understand that, but when you talk to police and when you talk to prosecutors in this state, they say the laws are off the hook at this point.
No one that I talk to in law enforcement says that asylum seekers are committing a disproportionate share of crimes. Quite the opposite. So if you want to get at public safety issues, if you want to get at mental health crisis, you want to get at gun violence, you want to get at retail theft, the things that are making New York less livable, that's what I want to get at with smart crime fighting and public safety.
And what does that mean, though, in terms of changing the laws?
About changing the immigration laws.
Okay, but let's take the immigration laws off the table then for a second.
I thought that's what we...
well, I think there's an immigration law question, but also there's a separate question, which is what you would do with violent offenders of any sort.
I mean, look, there's a conversation right now about the discovery laws in New York, which got reformed a couple of years ago, and as a result,
do you think the reforms were a mistake?
I think the discovery reforms are worth looking at because misdemeanors are getting prosecuted at a much lower rate than they were, and we got to do something.
What about bail reform? Bail reform.
Crimes went up everywhere across the country. I don't believe the bail reform in New York was what led to the spike. I think it was the mental health crisis. I think that there are some things in the discovery reform that should be fixed. And I think you just need to address the staffing crisis. And right now, the management crisis at the NYPD, caused by Eric Adams having a corrupt commissioner like he did, that's a big part of the problem. Now, I think
you think that's why there's as much crime in this city as there is?
Look, in the weeks that 3 months that Jesse Tisch has been commissioner, you're seeing crime coming down. Accountable leadership at the top, I think that matters a great deal. And again, that's why I wrote this
I think that if we had Jesse Tisch sitting here, she would tell you that it would make her life a lot easier if the laws were changed in this state.
And I think she would tell you, here are the things I've done to have an accountable force to recruit
but
officers and to bring crime down.
You would not push, if you were the mayor, you would not be pushing for harsher penalties and bail reform to be rolled back in any way, shape, or form?
Well, I think there's some things we can do to have more flexibility for involuntary hospitalization for people with serious mental illness and then get them connected to housing and stability. I think there's reforms we can make on discovery that get the number of misdemeanors that are prosecuted back up. So sure, there are changes that are made, but I think the most important thing is accountable leadership. And that's why I think Commissioner Tisch is doing a good job. That's why I think Eric Adams has to be held accountable, can't be a hostage to Donald Trump. He's got to work for New Yorkers. He's not focused on public safety right now. He's focused on the safety of just one person, and that's himself.